Well, Angel, sometimes the show just didn't have enough soul. Alright, another list and revisit to something related to the works of Joss Whedon. We're gonna go back to Angel, and I did my tops. I gotta do the bottoms. What I feel, at least to my taste, are the 10 worst episodes of Angel. This list was hard to put together for much the same reason that the best of Angel list was hard to put together, which is that there are so many things that get drawn out over multiple episodes. Oftentimes there are plot elements or aspects or characters who I don't particularly like, but they keep showing up across episodes, and they're actually only a small part of any given episode. And I can't go like, oh, that's the episode that's all about that thing I don't like. Instead, it's little bits in episodes otherwise I do like. So I couldn't, just trying to figure out actual single episodes that I'm like, that was not good, was a lot more work than I thought it would be. But this is the list that I've got. This is my 10. May not be your 10. Some people's favorite episodes will probably be on there. I have a tendency to do that sometimes. I'm not doing it to just make you angry, but stick with me. We'll get through this. So, starting with number 10. The Cautionary Tale of Numero Cinco. Now, looking at it in a vacuum, this is one that I see come up on other people's lists sometimes, but I actually don't think it's that bad of an episode in and of itself. I do, however, think that if they were going to do something like this, it really should have been done season 1 or season 2. Instead, it shows up in season 5, which is the darkest and most dire season. That's not to say you couldn't do silly in season 5. Season 5 gave us Smile Time, of all things, but whereas Smile Time feels like it flows and integrates and plays off of the darkness that had come before it, the Cautionary Tale of Numero Cinco, with its lucha libre wrestlers and campy nature, feels more at odds than Smile Time did. And I can only just chalk that up to execution, and it just not quite fitting in its placement in the show. And sometimes that is what happens. Sometimes an episode is made better or made worse, not because of what it is, but because when they choose to have that story get told in the overall framework of the show. And I think that is what really hurt this one. Number 9, Tomorrow. This is the one that includes Cordelia being taken up by the powers that be. Now, my feelings about the stuff that went on with Cordelia in later seasons, 3 and then later on in season 4, I'm kind of two minds about. I actually don't think, I don't have a ton of issues personally with what happened with a lot of things that happen with the character that I know other people are really upset by. However, I do, at least so far as I understand what went on behind the scenes that caused a lot of those writing decisions, that stuff, I'm like, what? But this whole thing with and this has episode specifically, this was one where this is a story where I'm like, kind of iffy on it. Like, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I can encapsulate it into an episode, and it's this one. And between Cordelia with this revelation that, I love Angel, but then, being told you're being called to a higher power and literally ascending effectively into heaven, it's weird in a bad way. And Angel could be weird in very good ways at times, but it feels like something out of another show. It feels like a very special episode of something. It's the way that things built up between Angel and Cordelia didn't feel organic, and then having it culminate in this kind of moment and have it supposed to ring as like a sad, joyous thing with her going, when it just comes off as like, wait, what? And yeah, it just doesn't work. Number 8, Double or Nothing. I've just got 5 words for this one. Soul sold for truck. Bitch. So, yeah, this is the episode where we find out that Gunn sold his soul for a truck. And I understand what it's trying for. I understand that it's trying to be a story about consequences, which is actually a narrative and an element that the show usually does very well. And it's trying to layer that with, the stupid decisions we make in our youth, sort of filtered through the mirror of the things that people do when they think they don't have a future. Because Gunn didn't see, he probably didn't understand the value of his soul, but he also didn't think he was going to be alive for this to be collected before he died anyway, because he didn't expect to live very long. So there is potential in the concept of this. But he sold his soul for a truck. And what actually comes out of that, and him having to answer for that, isn't wrung for the kind of poignancy that the show is usually able to milk out of dealing with consequences. It just feels much more superficial, and it feels almost kind of patronizing, like, oh, look what this guy did back when he was a street kid who didn't know better. It's like, what? I feel like they took the wrong angle for what they were trying to do. Number 7, I Fall to Pieces. So this is the episode about a guy who can pull himself apart, and his limbs or various bits of him can act independently. And that's supposed to be scary. No. I'm sorry, because a guy whose hand can crawl, like, that can be a little creepy, but like in the way that, boy, something weird's going on around here, kind of creepy, but not in like, I should be scared of this guy because his hand can walk away. That, no. No. That's like total B-movie, shoestring 80s slasher teen horror premise, and just it's laughable, and it tries to weave a stalking and domestic abuse kind of story with it, which I think is too heavy a story for how goofy this Monster of the Week gimmick is. And no. Number 6, The Life of the Party. This is the episode from season 5 where Lorne gave up his sleep, and that starts impacting everybody in weird ways. Lorne is one of those characters who is a brilliant supporting character. He has terrific chemistry, a great dynamic with a whole bunch of characters. He's a wonderful element in so many episodes. He doesn't work when they devote episodes to him specifically. He is built from the ground up as a supporting player. He's good at that. Let him do that. But yeah, episodes focused more on him, they just kind of fall flat. And this one does too. And we're again dealing with that clash of tone that it's like it's trying to lay the groundwork for the consequences of what these guys are doing in their positions at Wolfram and Hart. But again, it's going goofy with it when there are so many other episodes that deal with consequences with such poignancy, and this just doesn't. It's just weird with, I think, Gunn was marking territory, and like there's a big monster version of Lorne, and like people won't stop dancing. The whole thing is just strange, and in a way that is not intriguing. Number 5, Provider. This is the episode with all the concerns about how to make money to care for the baby, because this is after Connor was born, before he gets yanked off to a hell dimension and shows up so much older. So this is the kind of logistical nuts and bolts episode that I feel like sometimes shows feel obligated to do so that they can say they didn't leave a plot hole, but they didn't get an interesting story out of covering up a plot hole that I, for one, would have been prepared to give them the benefit of the doubt on. Like, I understand that they were kind of always strapped for cash, and that a baby is a time sink. I've had one, so I do understand that. But, just a couple of token references of, there are major repairs on the hotel we're putting off so that, we can get diapers or whatnot, as opposed to making it all about, we're going to make all this extra money and basing the episode around that. First of all, it turns Connor into more of a plot device than he already was, and a prop. He's something to drive this story of this episode, but it's not the story of how they adjust to what it means emotionally to have a kid. It's about how do we pay for all this, which is the most superficial way to deal with suddenly having a child in your life. And yeah, that annoys me. Number 4, She could probably be retitled A Very Special Angel Episode. This is, again, a case of heart in the right place, but bad execution, very misguided, very heavy-handed with its attempt at female empowerment and its attempt to tackle some, a fantasy metaphorical version of, human trafficking and just demoralization of women. But it's just trying so on the nose and so ham-fistedly that at least for me, my brain kind of rejects it. Like, this is not a premise or something that I'm initially going to go, don't do something about that. Like, no, do something about that. You can get something out of that. But then it's just beating you over the head with these women are equal. Like, these demon women, yes, I know, are equal. I'm like, yeah, I know that. I know. Are we going any deeper than that? There's a lot more to be mined. And it's just so... It's a very special episode. That's how it feels. Number 3. One that I'm pretty sure I've seen some people say they really like, but I don't. The Girl in Question. The Buffy cameo, but not really episode. So there's a couple of problems with this. First off, I don't like Andrew, who shows up ported over from Buffy. I don't like him. I've never liked him. I came to dislike him slightly less as time went on, but I've never enjoyed him as a presence. So teasing me that we're going to get Buffy, but only giving us him, and not only like teasing at the front end and then he shows up and like, oh no, Buffy's not coming, like teasing the whole episode. All we see is the back of the head of a stand-in. Like, come on. Oh man, it infuriated me at the time, and I look at it and it's such a superficial way to build up the antagonism and play it up between Spike and Angel. And it's the cheap way to go when I know the show can tackle these kinds of things better, smarter, and does that elsewhere in other episodes. So when they take the cheap route, it just annoys me all the more. Number 2. The House Always Wins. It's a Lauren episode again. Go figure that. This is the one where Lauren is trapped at a casino, basically under contract, and his abilities being used to steal people's destinies, which is an odd premise. But again, building the episode primarily around Lauren largely doesn't work and kind of falls flat. It doesn't help that the bad guys are very cartoonish in this. The scheme's kind of ridiculous. The casino as a setting isn't that interesting, even though it looks like they put a lot of effort into this sort of new place, and look at all this. I'm like, it's not interesting. It's not interesting to watch. You didn't, so the house cheats at gambling. Wow. Really? And it's an episode that just, it's one of those times where it feels like an episode that should have been a Buffy episode. It feels like the kind of issue of the week sort of thing that honestly worked better on Buffy. Angel was at its best when it was stringing out long form, emotionally wrenching character arcs and drama. When it did, problem of the week, it's when it tended to fall at its most flat, and I think this is an example of that. And that brings us to my personal least favorite. I'm not sure I can actively argue that it is, by any objective measure, the worst, but I really don't like it, and I've rewatched it, and I still really don't like it, and it becomes an interesting thing where it's like a miracle that I ended up sticking with the show and loving it so much, because it's the very first episode of the show, City of... I don't like this episode. Like, I don't like a lot of the first season at all. I think the first season is clunky and doesn't know what it wants to be, or what it wants to be at this point is very derivative and uninteresting. The show didn't really start to get good beyond just my natural affinity for these characters until the second season. And this first episode, it's awkward and it's clunky and it's generic and it's, it's... To me, it feels like when I watch the first episode, I'm watching all the episodes that I dislike boiled down into their primordial form. This first episode just embodies all the times that, at least for me, the show misfired and misstepped or just failed to deliver much of anything interesting. Because there isn't anything really interesting going on in this. It's the most generic initial starting setup kind of thing that you can possibly come up with. And I don't like it at all. So that's my list of what are my 10 least favorite episodes of Angel. What is your list? I'm sure it's much different from mine. And that's fine. Whatever it is, though, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. There's all the stuff to do, such as like, subscribe, support me on Patreon if you're the generous type. Links for all that stuff is down in the description, because there's way more than just that. There's Twitter and t-shirts to buy, etc. So until next time, this council is adjourned.